Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Atypical Security Guard. I want to share with you guys a story today. I think that I've kind of established that when I get off of work, that I'm going to come on here and do a little story time. And I don't know what it is about, the last couple of weeks where I've shared with you guys some of my crazy stories. Like it has been a really cool experience to just reflect back on some of the crazy things that I've done in my life and some of the mistakes that I've made, and share that information. When I was a kid, I grew up in Arkansas. And one of the things that I loved the most about being a kid was sitting at the feet of my dad and my uncles, my grandpa, and just listening to people tell stories. Like I think back on a lot of the stories that I heard when I was a kid and like how I live my life, the decisions that I make, the way that I treat people, how I see the world. A lot of that comes from the stories that I heard. So I hope that when you guys listen to these stories, whether it's the first time you've ever listened to me tell a story, or if you're one of those people that keeps coming back to hear these stories, I hope that it helps you in some way. Some of these things that I've done are just like outright stupid, but you can learn from an old man like me and some of the mistakes that I've made. So, I hope that you guys are getting something out of these stories that I share. Today we're going to talk about being Cinderella for a day. What do I mean by that? Well, the story of Cinderella is the peasant girl who goes to the ball and she wows everybody. She wows them with her beauty, she wows them with the way that she carries herself, but ultimately that's not her environment. And at midnight, it's time to go home. And I had an experience very similar to that. I think it was like 2012, 2013. It could have been 2011, but at the time I was living in Pennsylvania and I was running a youth sporting academy. And this youth sporting academy was in a very rural area, and we had, probably 200 families that had their kids enrolled in various programs, right? And one of those families was the Bender family, Bender. Now, this family, they were so eccentric, right? The wife, she was a glass blower. The husband, his name was Robert, and he was real just like hippie-ish. And the kids were wild, and the whole family, they lived on a farm and they were just like your quintessential hippie family. And I have to admit that, like, when I first met these people, I wasn't a big fan of them. I didn't get the way that they dressed. They were always into like canning food and jarring food, and they kind of let their kids do whatever. And so I wasn't a big fan of these people, but there was something about Robert. He had a very just cool demeanor. He had a very nice energy. He had a great spirit. And so after a while, we kind of developed a friendship, but it was a friendship in business, right? Like, I talked to him when he was at the youth center. I talked to him when he was picking up his kids or dropping off his kids, but we developed a little bit of a friendship. So he comes in one day and he says to me, "Hey, my brother is going to be sending you a check. And this check's going to be for about $6,000. So when you get this check, I don't want you to freak out. I don't want you to think it's fake. It's from my brother. He's going to pay for the kids for the next 2 years to do all their classes and things like that." And I'm like, "Man, like that's crazy. Like your brother is gonna pay for the kids." He's like, "Yeah, he tries to do what he can to help out. He's really into children. He wants them to make sure that they have like activities and things like that. So when you get the check, it's going to come from his office in California." So I'm like, "All right." I said, "Well, like, what does your brother do that like he's, just gonna send a $6,000 check?" And Robert looks at me almost like, a little bit of shock. And he goes, "Are you serious?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "What's your brother do?" And he goes, "You don't know who my brother is?" I'm like, "Robert, why would I know who your brother is? Like, we've never talked about your brother. Like, I have no idea." He goes, "My brother is Lawrence Bender." And I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "Lawrence Bender, the Hollywood producer." He was like, He's produced Inglorious Bastards. He has produced Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs. Like, he worked with Quentin Tarantino. Like, they're partners. And I'm like, these are some of my favorite movies. You know what I mean? I'm like, what? That's your brother? He's like, yeah, that's my brother. So now I know this information, right? This is in the back of my mind. So fast forward like 6 months to a year, and Robert calls me and he says, hey, my brother has a movie coming out, and we're going to go to Tribeca in New York City to premiere the movie. He goes, my wife, she doesn't want to go. She's gone to these premieres, like so many times. She's over them. He was like, I would love to take you. Would you like to go? And I'm like, yeah, like, absolutely. Like, who's in the movie? Like, whatever it is, I want to go, right? So he tells me that the movie is a Jason Statham movie, and you guys might have seen the movie. It's called Safe, Safe, right? Starring Jason Statham, produced by his brother. And he says, now I got to tell you, if we go to this premiere, you're going to be with me and my family. You're going to be with him. Like, and if everything goes well, more than likely, you're going to end up going to an after party. So if we go to this after party, I need you to understand that, like, you are going to be around some very famous people, and you have to act like you've been there before, right? He's like, you can't take pictures, like, you can't freak out, like, you can't geek out, like, you have to act like you've been there. So I'm not going to pass up this opportunity, right? So we go down to Tribeca. We go to the movie is premiered in the back of this film house, and we get there. We walk the red carpet. There's all these famous people, and the movie premiere is done just for the people in the movie. So it's like the actors, the actresses, the studio, all the bigwigs, right? So I'm in this movie theater with like all these famous people. And so after the premiere is over, his brother's like, I feel good about this. He's like, all right, everybody, let's go. So we get into these like limos, and we drive into Manhattan to this penthouse. And we get to this like high-rise hotel type thing, and we go in through the bottom. It's like Goodfellas. We walk in, we go in through the back, we go into this like restaurant, we go through the back of the restaurant, and we take an elevator all the way up to the top floor of this penthouse. Now, when we're going through the kitchen of this restaurant, there's literally just like you see in movies, like two big ass dudes. Now, guys, you got to remember, I'm 6'1", 200, and I'm probably 270 pounds right now. The guys that they had at the door were huge. They made me look small, right? So like we get to the door of this elevator, and the guys are like, excuse me, sir. And Lawrence is like, no, he's with me. I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, I'm with him. So we go to the top floor of this penthouse. And when we get there and we walk in, it's a normal like house party. Like, people are chilling. Jason Statham, he's there. Stephen Baldwin, he's there. Ice-T and Coco, Russell Simmons, Shaun White, the skateboarder, like 3 Victoria's Secrets models, like just tons of like famous people. Like, it's crazy. And everybody's just chilling. People are just like sitting on couches and outside on the deck next to the fire. People just like, Russell Simmons was just kind of holding court and talking, and everybody's listening. And so I'm sitting in this chair, and they bring out like these hamburger sliders, and I go to reach for a slider, and Coco, Ice-T's wife, like, we reach for the same cheeseburger, and we have this little conversation. And I talk to Ice-T about how much I love watching Special Victims Unit and like trying to not geek out, right? And the craziest thing is that as I'm having these conversations and I'm talking to people, I'm walking around the spot, Stephen Baldwin, who, for me, like when I was a kid, when I was in high school, the movie The Usual Suspects was my favorite movie. And he played this character called McManus. And I was like, I modeled myself after this guy when I went to the military, like the way he carried himself, like he was so cool in that movie, right? And so I sat and talked to him for like 3 hours. And he was like, I feel like I know you. Where do I know you from? I'm like, oh, we might have worked together. I think, he's like, what do you do for work? I'm like, oh, I'm an accountant. I'm an accountant, a Hollywood accountant. Like, I'm making up stories and like telling him this. And, He could have been acting, I don't know. But the long story short is that Stephen Baldwin and I had this 2.5, 3 hour conversation talking about everything from his faith to like Hollywood to his brothers. And he was telling me that he was going to start this youth camp for young kids down in Missouri, and I'm from Missouri, right? So like being able to connect with him and have this conversation, it was such an amazing experience for me. And then around midnight, Robert comes over and he taps me on the shoulder and he leans down and he says, "All right, Cinderella, it's time to go home." So we get our stuff, say our goodbye, shake Jason Statham's hand, tell him how much I enjoy his movies, go over and pay my respects to Russell Simmons. I tell him how much I appreciate what he's done for the music industry, what his brother, what Run DMC means to me, what they've meant to everybody in hip hop. I say goodbye to Ice-T and Coco. Like I go over and dap it up with Shaun White. This amazing experience to be in the presence of these people, to be in this environment. And the point that I want to drive home with you guys is that two things. Number one, you never know when you are going to be in a situation that far exceeds your level in life. Think about that. When you're in a situation that far exceeds your current level in life, where you are at that moment, you're in a situation where you are around people that could open doors for you. You are around people that have way more influence and way more power, way more knowledge, right? That could put you in a better situation. I did not take advantage of that opportunity in the way that I should. I was around Jason Statham. I was around Lawrence Bender. I was around Ice-T and Coco. Stephen Baldwin, in that moment, the 2.5 to 3 hours that we were talking, he was telling me about the plans that he had to build this camp, the plans that he had to do this youth outreach. And at the time, guys, I'm working in a youth athletic center. The entire reason why I was there was because Robert's children were in my program. The person who was paying for their next 2 years of athletics, it was his party. I had a great opportunity to take advantage of that moment that God had opened that door for me. Stephen Baldwin wrote on a piece of paper his email address and his phone number. And I was so starstruck by seeing Jason Statham, so starstruck by talking to Ice-T, that I took that phone number and email from Stephen Baldwin and left it in the car, left it in the hotel. I don't know. A missed opportunity. Who knows what doors could have been open if I would have said, "Hey, we're talking about this youth camp that you're wanting to start. You're talking about this outreach that you're wanting to do. I happen to work in this industry." And I was so busy lying to him and making up a story to try and think of myself in a higher esteem instead of just telling him who I was, what I did, and how I could have been of service. Now, guys, look, I don't have a main point to drive home to you other than to say, in your life, you are going to be placed in situations where you are around people of greater influence. You're going to be placed in situations where doors are being opened for you. And I don't know how to tell you how to spot them, how to know where they are, and how to take advantage of them. But I am telling you right now that you do not want to be like me 10 years, 15 years down the line and regret that you wasted that opportunity. That's all I got for you guys tonight. Notice your opportunities. Take advantage of your opportunities. Don't be afraid to shoot your shot. And also, don't be afraid of where you are, because just because you seem like you are in a lower status or a lower stature or a position that maybe is not as elevated as the people that you're talking to, sometimes what they need is exactly what you can offer. That is the beauty of being a security guard and working in this industry. I have been in countless conversations. Guys, I have worked with news organizations. I have worked with the mayor. I went to an FBI briefing right before the election. I have done news interviews with Fox News. I've done news interviews with Newsmax. Like, there have been so many doors that have been opened, all because of the environment that I have been in working in security. I have tried my absolute best over the last 2 years to take advantage of anything and everything that's placed in front of me. And I guess that's my message to you tonight. If you're the server, if you're working the door, if you're driving the Uber, there are still opportunities. There is no situation in life where you are too low to benefit from where you are. Don't waste those opportunities. Learn to spot them and take advantage of them. Okay? Let me see what kind of comments we got here. All right, guys. As always, thank you for letting me just ramble to you. Thank you for letting me have this stream of consciousness. Thank you for letting me share my stories with you guys. I hope that something that I say, something that I share with you guys, that it resonates. And I hope that you guys go through your life and you do better than I have done. I've done pretty good. I'm not going to lie. But I hope that you guys make better choices and better decisions than me. And I hope that you guys find your success and you find your happiness. I'll talk to you guys on the next stream, okay? You guys be safe. Have a great night. Be great.